All right, welcome back to another episode of the Aspiring VC. Your host, Matt Snow, here with Mass Ventures. I have Jackson Rhodes with me from Sigma Ventures. But before we dive into anything too serious, I need to ask you, Jackson, Dunkin' or Starbucks, and why?
Starbucks for sure. My girlfriend would probably kill me if I said Dunkin'. But I've used Starbucks my entire life, and I know my mom's order by heart. Just riding in the car with her when I was younger, a venti no foam non-fat latte, and so been there a long time, and it's part of who I am at this point. So
All right, well, I am a Dunkin' guy at heart, so I won't take it too personally. I'll admit Starbucks may have some better flavor, but up in the East Coast, I think Dunkin' is the leader. But all right, let's dive into a little bit. Give us like a 2-minute summary. Explain yourself and the firm and the role that you're in.
sure. Jackson Rhodes. I'm with Sigma Ventures and sort of a corporate venture capital arm. Sigma Actuarial Consulting Group is sort of the parent company. They've been around since 1995. There's a consulting arm and a software products arm. And the principals of the firm decided about 2-3 years ago, hey, venture capital is an asset class that's growing. We want to get involved. And so Sigma Ventures is born out of sort of that desire to get in the space. And so started pretty early, pre-seed to seed, maybe a couple of Series A co-investment opportunities. We don't really lead rounds, but we like to get in with established investors, definitely Series A. But before that, pre-seed and seed, we love working with founders. For PowerPoint to business plan, go to market, help formulate the company legally, and really just get the business started on a good foot, so we can pass it off to a firm that is ready to scale them.
That's awesome. And can you explain to me a little bit more on maybe some of the sectors you guys have tended to focus on? And it does seem like you do a lot of this hands-on support. And so maybe some of the areas, I don't know if it's like go to market or other, fundraising or other areas that you tend to give kind of the most strategic, input and advice on.
Yep. I say we're industry not agnostic. Since we're early stage, we really look for outstanding founding teams, but I would say that we have a bias towards technology. We have a software line, and so we've sold software in the past. We've bought it, kind of know how the industry works, how to sell it, and so that's sort of our bias. But for example, we've invested in Room, which is sort of a modular co-working space, but the founding team there was fantastic. And so when we see a founding team that is really good and have a really clear vision, that doesn't stop us at all either. But yeah, helping, really just, we don't want to over help, but if the founder asks us for an ask, intro, helping them with a financial model or some sort of legal work, we want to be valuable. We want the founder at the end of the day to say, hey, these guys did something good for us. And so that's sort of where we come in. We don't micromanage, but we definitely want to work as a partner.
Definitely. And are there, any I know you guys are based in Nashville. I was kind of curious if you have tended to invest in more Nashville-based companies or if it's kind of all across the U.S. And also kind of curious if there are, certain firms that you've seen them, maybe once or twice or more coming in and, doing the follow-on rounds of the companies that you guys have, invested in.
I would say before the pandemic, we'd be focused Southeast, but I think I'm a digital native, 25, so grew up with technology, and so Zoom is inherent to kind of who I am, and so we're kind of global now. I wouldn't say we have expertise on the markets, but we take meetings from anywhere across the globe, anywhere across the United States, and so sort of the bias for the Southeast has kind of gone away. In terms of follow-on rounds, really, let's see, we've had 2 companies get follow-on, so increase so far. Both have been for Bay Area VCs have done that, and so we don't have a super strong relationship with any venture capital firm, but that's sort of where I come in. I'm on the phone sort of all day, every day, emailing and sort of building the relationships. And so that's part of my job, actually. So if you come back in a year or two, that answer will be different.
Awesome. So, this is a fun one. Kind of part of the crux of the episode is, your origin story. And I know like earlier before recording, we were talking about, baseball and kind of how important that is to your life. And so I think I definitely want to hear on kind of that, other, key things that you've really enjoyed in your life and some of these pivotal moments, high school, college, first job. Basically, how did you end up in this position? It's very hard industry to break into. And you're in this unique spot of kind of building this firm from the ground up. So how did it all happen?
Well, like you said, baseball is a big impact on my life, mainly for the fact that you really get what you put in. I don't have bias towards your degree, past experience. I put a lot of bias on motivation, mindset. And so coming out of college, I didn't have that background. I worked at Regions Bank, which is a very regional, small bank. Figured out pretty early on that corporate life wasn't for me because I kind of base that off. I worked in startups during college. I love the small team. I love sort of the sink or swim culture. Lots of ways you can say it, drink from the fire hose, but sort of learning on the job is extremely important to me. And so coming out of Regions, I really wanted to find somewhere that was not a big corporate firm, wasn't in the Fortune 500, and wanted to build. I'm a builder by heart, just for my personality. I like to look back and say, hey, I did that, instead of, hey, I maintained that, or I just tweaked that or something like that. And so Sigma was on the radar. I grew up in Nashville, and they were looking for someone to be an outward face, talk on the phone, be all over the town, really just building relationships all across the country. And so that was sort of perfect. I'm an energetic guy. And so it really was just a perfect combination of my personality, what they're looking for, and sort of the stage in life I was at. And so coming, about a year ago, started working and here and haven't really looked back.
That's awesome, man. And, one of the things I try and focus on in the episodes is kind of explaining for the listeners who are trying to break into these positions, like real practical advice and things they can do. So it'd be cool to dive into a little bit of, how you found your passion, how you went about networking, how you went about things like internships and jobs. I mean, maybe even like how did you balance, kind of professional work and being a student athlete? All these things could be interesting.
Yeah, I think the important part is there's a real disconnect between college life and professional life. In the professional world, I mean, you want to find what you love, but at the end of the day, you have to do something that's valuable. And so when I'm networking in particular, I just find, how can I be valuable to this person? I don't want to waste their time, but how can I leave this conversation, meeting, etc., with them having a feeling, hey, this guy was worth my time. He did something that was beneficial. Let's, meet back up in a month and continue this relationship. So that's how I approach networking. If we have nothing in common, I have nothing to offer, I'm not going to network with you. So it's just sort of my philosophy there. Balancing, I think, is really important. Personal philosophy here is fitness. Just physical fitness is really important to your mental fitness and how productive you can be. And so I think finding a way to balance a routine, it's not sort of, hey, diet, work out for whatever, but it's sort of how can you incorporate into your lifestyle as healthy as you can be, so you can be as productive and happy as you can be. So that's sort of my take on balancing. It's just sort of how can you maximize your lifestyle so you can get as much work done as well as keep your body fine-tuned as much as possible. Actionable advice. I mean, there's lots of internet's information overload. And so really just have a purpose. I mean, don't just go work out, say like, hey, I want to do this. I want to have A, B, C done, and sort of build on that. So I'm a builder, so build on what you've done and sort of keep on moving forward, and good things will come to you. So that's my sort of philosophy on balancing and networking. I guess professional wise, the world doesn't work unless you work in a trade. Most of the world is relationship based. And so I wouldn't focus too much on, being extremely knowledgeable in this one domain. I would try to have a high level understanding of how things work together and interchange. And then when you see an opportunity for you, or no one's in a space, there's an opportunity to really create a name for yourself in this one area, that's where you kind of go and become very, have a domain expertise in A, B, or C. Don't just follow in the footsteps. Really, just find a place where you can make a name for yourself.
And with networking component, I know that it can be tough with volume because the amount of emails that you have to do to get a yes can be a lot. The amount of attempted intros for someone to invest in a company or check out a fund. Again, just the volume can be kind of overwhelming. How do you kind of have this kind of grit and ability to push through with the amount of interactions that you need to have the small fraction of highly successful ones?
Yeah, I would put that on my background. I've had old school mentors and coaches my entire life, and so rejection just doesn't really faze me that much. I kind of internalize it and figure out why they were rejected. I think if you figure out why, you got to know you didn't get a no response, and you can look at it objectively without emotion, and just become better. That's sort of the takeaway. I think, in my opinion, if you're not failing in some part of your life, you're not maximizing sort of what you can do or your potential. And so finding that point between success and failure where you're not failing too much, but you're not just totally succeeding every second of your life is really important. And if you find that balance, you can continually move forward and become sort of better than you were last year, yesterday, etc. So don't become too emotional and sort of objectively figure out what went wrong. If you're networking, why did person A or why did Sequoia not talk to you? Probably because you're not valuable enough. But if you're in a vertical, like, hey, this person probably has more expertise than you do. So if you want to be that person, find another way. And so that's just sort of my philosophy on that. Rejection happens to everybody. So.
Definitely. So let's switch gears out of rejection. Let's talk about some of the great accomplishments. Let's talk about some of the deals that you guys have won. Maybe like, I don't know, one or two times where you won a deal or kind of sent off an intro that you're like really proud of the outcome of that. And yeah, man, let's talk about some wins. Yeah,
some wins. I would say I guess the most millennial win is we got in a deal from Twitter. I view Twitter as TikTok, et cetera, as a marketing avenue. And so I was, DMing this anonymous Twitter account, and he was interesting, technology based, DMing for a year, and just back and forth, and never knew who this guy was. But he was a Reddit senior software engineer, came out and started a startup, I guess 2-3 months ago. Mixed up with some operational guys out west and sort of created this good team. And we got in the deal with some bigger players. Jason Calacanis was one of them. Craft Ventures was one of them. And we got in the deal just because I was in the guy's Twitter DMs, getting to know him, trying to help him out. And so that comes back to giving value. Like he was asking legal questions, asking for definitions, financial insights, analysis. And so I was trying to help him out. And the end result was, we got in his startup. But the key was, I wasn't doing that with the intention of, hey, this guy's going to have a startup in, 9 months. That's just interesting to me and something I like to do. And it happened to work out well. And so that's sort of the serendipity of life that, you got to sort of embrace. Another big win was, I guess Zen Sports is a big one. They're sort of a cryptocurrency peer-to-peer gambling app. They just got, they just 10x'd their rounds. And so getting in there was pretty exciting. That was actually our first deal. And so we've already, paper gains, but, it's, pretty exciting still.
Yeah, man, I think a 10x write up on anything is impressive. It's cool. It's like super scrappy. Getting in a syndicate with Kraft and Calacanis that's a huge win. So really love that story. The Twitter DM avenue is just fascinating. And yeah, man, I think it just goes back to what we were talking about earlier with kind of your values and mindset. And yeah, really cool to see, how that's already paying off a lot of dividends,
Yeah, it's I guess dot connector is a word people throw around. But if you have a high level overview and you can just not get too attached until you see a way to attach yourself in a valuable way, a lot of doors will open up to you. And I think that's what a lot of the big time investors, a lot of the big time, people, technologists, that's what they've done. And so I try to not narrow myself into a box too early in my career. And so, yeah, so far it's worked out. We'll see in 10 years how it's still going. But hopefully it's still
Yeah.
going the right way.
Yeah, no, I think it's all I think it's all trending up and to the right as we like to see all the time.
Yeah.
Um, one question here is just kind of I think we have a good sense of this from your kind of love of building, networking, connecting the dots. But are there other things that kind of draw you to the venture and startup space? And then maybe why early stage?
I would say the ability to impact the future. I know it's kind of esoteric, and people like to say that for brownie points or whatever. But I think it's really important to be the change that you want to see. And so, if you have an opportunity to fund a company that has potential to disrupt an industry or help a segment of the population, I think it's really important to do so. And you can sort of create a societal change. I mean, the bigger firms do it, more, I guess, on a bigger scale. Sequoia, Benchmark have, changed sort of the gig economy forever. That's sort of a really obvious example, but that's important to me is, being on the cusp and being able to influence the next generation of companies is really important. The early stage is not where I think I'd always want to be, and I hope to build Sigma into a all stage from soil rounds to late stage growth. But the sort of the capital we have right now, early stage is where we're going to be. That is the most fun. It's where the founders are teams less than 10. You're really just everyone's wearing everyone hats. You're balls to the wall, scrappy. That is sort of the fun part. Once you get to growth, it is fun, put $100 million in a company and get a 3x return in, 2 years or a year. But, it's very math based, very business professional. And so a lot of sort of the fun is taken out of it. So you got to balance it. I mean, the returns are better, but there's a lot more fun to be had in the early stage.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you have a good point on growth equity can be a lot more math based. So I think personality wise, if people are interested in the space, they should kind of take an inventory of their skills. If you don't really think that you have what it takes to do FP&A and some intense modeling, maybe you should focus more on the early stage. Not saying you can't do it, but understanding kind of the skills that are needed and where that will position you. I do think people have this impression that they have to be an absolute domain expert. And I kind of liked your point earlier about like connecting the dots and just being a good thinker. I don't think you necessarily have to be, have to have a specific background and only look at funds of a certain sector. Yeah, I think understanding this early and later stage distinction on the skill set is definitely important for people to, kind of think about before they try and break in.
Yeah, I would think growth equity sort of, people make fun of private equity all the time. It's like banking 2.0. But, if you look at the big growth funds, I mean, they're essentially banking 2.0. I mean, you're behind an Excel sheet all day looking at, unit economics and all that. You're looking at numbers. So yeah, it just depends. If you're investment banking background and you want to get into venture capital, I mean, growth equity is a great place to hop into because your skill set's really desired.
Definitely. If you're ready, we can jump into some rapid fire questions here.
Sure, let's do it.
Cool. All right. First one, who has been one of your most important mentors? And, if possible, do you remember like a specific piece of advice or like a quote that they gave you that kind of still stands in mind today?
Yeah, I would say personally, my college coach, Jan Weisberg, was a big mentor. I guess one quote sticks in my mind is make someday today. People always talk about, hey, someday I'm going to do this, someday, blah, 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 someday ABC. Make someday today. It's sort of just an action quote. I mean, call to action. I mean, whatever's on your mind, go ahead and get started and you'll figure out sooner if it's meant for you or not. But Jan was he was an old school college coach, coached Kentucky. a wide array of life experiences. Grew up in California, played in the pros. So he was a big mentor, just understanding life. He's a big life knowledge guy. Not so much school, but he knows a lot about people, understanding how to manage. And so that's a big part of relationship management, is managing the relationships. And so I learned a lot from him. In terms of venture capital, I don't know him personally, but I love Bill Gurley. I read all his tweets, everything he puts out through Benchmark. I think he's a pioneer, trendsetter, and he's one of those. You hate to use the word influencer in venture capital, but he definitely has an impact on sort of the direct listing movement, sort of fixing the IPO pop is what he says. But someone a big voice of that is impressive. I also like Michael Maples at Lightspeed. He is another pioneer, early stage whiz, and someone that I would if I could be him, if I could have his career, I think 40 years from now I'd be very, very, very satisfied.
Yeah, I think I'd take the Gurley career as well.
Yeah. I mean, but it's awesome. A lot of them have blog posts. I mean, Andrew Chen is at A16Z is a big blogger, and so if you really want to just see how they think, you can really get a good idea just by reading their tweets, reading their blog posts, websites. So you don't really have to. It's obviously better if you know them, but you can get a good idea how they think and sort of how they approach problems through all the content they put out.
Totally. And I will say, you kind of hit on some of my rapid fire ones already, but there is one left that I would like to hit on is, it could either be what is one of your favorite startups right now that you're really excited about, or, more broadly, what are the characteristics in startups that get you, excited and interested about them?
Yeah, characteristics, we'll start there. Definitely. Founder market fit is a big, not just domain expertise, but intrinsic motivation in the market. I love someone who can just come in and make money, but understanding a real problem that is not just a 2-year bam and exit, but a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year journey, and you transform an industry. Obviously, a big one is Elon Musk, but really having an intrinsic motivation is really important to me. And so all the founders we back really have to have a internal connection to the problem that they're trying to fix, because year 4 through 6 is sort of the desert area, a lot of burnout. You really have to be committed to what you're doing, and so having that internal drive is a big way to get over that hump. A company I'm really, really, really excited about is Flyer, FLYR. The founder has been coding since he was 9. He is a computer whiz, but they're essentially transforming all the IT systems for the airline industry. And it's a multi-trillion. I think the last was like 50 trillion or 51 trillion was the estimates. So massive market, a incredibly smart guy leading the team, incredible founders, investors. Peter Thiel, Southwest venture arm, JetBlue's venture arm backs them as well. And, the results are there. And so they have, I think, 200 growth year over year, 200, a little bit over 200% year over year, last 2 years. And then, their contracts they're signing are, $50-60 million a year. And so it's exciting because if you ever ride fly, the legacy IT systems the airlines use are, they're going to be taken over sooner or later. And I believe this company is the one that's going to be doing it.
Well, you give a very, very strong pitch. So I definitely like that. I'm going to be checking out the company later. One fun outro question here, taken from Tim Ferriss is, what's a purchase of like $100 or a few hundred that's had like an outsized impact of joy or happiness in your life?
Yeah, I would definitely say a bike for me. Just a big thing I struggle with sometimes is just, your brain just goes too quick. And so I hop on the bike and just sort of think. It's my thinking station. Slow things down, meditate, etc. And just, you can go outside, enjoy the fresh air, see the trees. And so that's really been a big improvement for my life. I think really anytime you're in a big industry or, a stressful job, stressful life event, etc., you really need to have something that is yourself, your own enjoyment to slow things down, calm the mind, recenter yourself. And so there's lots of things that you can get for under $100. I mean, anyone can get a stress ball, fidget toy, really anything that really just recenters you and keeps you sort of focused on your true goals. Because everyone's getting torn left, right, up, down every day, all day long. And so, you got to protect who you are, or else you might be following someone else's dream instead of your own.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you're the first person to talk about a physical fitness item. I have had a lot of people talk about the AirPods, but which is kind of an obvious one. But yeah, I think it's cool. Like you were talking about earlier, the importance of fitness and actually like having a balanced life, and actually being able to achieve what you want professionally. So, I really like the kind of focus there. Lastly, I would like you to promote yourself. Where Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Username is _Jackson Rhodes _ JacksonRhodes. LinkedIn, just Jackson Rhodes. I don't have the URL memorized. But yeah, Twitter, LinkedIn is the big one. I have a variety of anonymous TikTok accounts I use, but TikTok's a big one as well for me. But Twitter and LinkedIn is definitely the go-tos. I think it has everything you really need to market yourself professionally, and then sort of informally stream of consciousness. So
totally. And one thing I've added from the suggestion of a prior guest was you have an opportunity to ask me a question if there's anything you want to throw my way.
Yeah, I would love to hear about your favorite deal so far. I know Mass Ventures is more like sort of deep tech based, and so I would love to hear sort of your view on sort of the next great company coming out of there.
Well, yeah. First, I'll talk about recent investment. Hopefully, by the time I release this, the investment will be public. It's a company called Python. Came through our START program, which gives additional non-dilutive funding to companies that have a phase 2 SBIR contract, and it's extended motion and gesture control. So basically, think a soldier could take a finger and mark a medivac or an airstrike. So obviously, with the military, massive applications, but consumer-wise, in the future, I think if you look at the shift from the iPhone to kind of the AirPods and the Apple Watch, everything gets closer to the body until eventually, the full iPhone screen will just be in the glasses. And so with Python, users could point up and down and, turn the volume up on their headphones and down, and Bose is actually in the syndicate. So pretty interesting application potential there. And I think, controlling robots, drones in a consumer setting as well could have a lot of applications. With any deep tech company, crossing the chasm from, being kind of reliant on the military side and shifting to consumer is kind of the hardest part. First, finding the funding to do that, and then second, actually getting the revenue. But we see a lot of potential in the company, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it does sound good. Was there any hesitancy, I guess, based on sort of not the same thing, but Google Glass and sort of smart glasses, are sort of the same concepts, human modulation, making humans better than they are. Didn't really catch on consumer wise. Any sort of take on sort of a change in go to market or a change in society preferences that will make that successful? Like is when you go mass try to obtain mass adoption.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big risk. What makes us excited, I think the involvement of Bose speaks volumes to how the timing really can be there and how they can be ready. There's also some traction with robotics companies as well. And I think it just depends on, the view of the world. I really do love Kathy Wood at ARK Invest, if you follow her. She's
Yeah.
been, talking about tech inflection points and how they have the 5-year, time frame as opposed to, and that's in the public markets. But, Kathy sees inflection points everywhere. She sees it in cryptocurrency and mRNA and synthetic bio. And I think gesture control is part of this. And I think my view of the way the world is going to look in 2030 and 2025. Obviously, no one knows what's even going to come tomorrow, but generally the level of disruption. I have a sense that there is kind of the potential within decade to have the commercial go-to-market be achievable. But obviously, we'll see how things play out.
Is there like a surgical medical use for that as well?
Definitely, yeah. So that could be a very significant use case.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get hospitals in that deal, I mean, that's a pretty significant recurring revenue source. So,
Yeah, a couple $1 trillion in that space, I'd say.
Yeah. Once you're in hospitals, it's hard to get out. So, yeah.
Definitely. Well, Jackson, really appreciate the time for the interview. It's been an awesome discussion, and super fun to get your take on everything. I think you've had a very unique view, and I'm also excited to just stay in touch going forward, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this, and I'm excited for when it comes out. It'll be fun. I'll definitely be following you on Apple Music, or I guess you're releasing this everywhere, Spotify,
yeah, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. So we'll be out
cool.
there.
Yeah, definitely have to favorite the podcast and see everyone that comes out.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
Later.
Looking to innovate, invent, and disrupt? We're your partner to fuel your growth. Contact us to learn more.